Good morning. Oh, you can do better than that. Good morning. There you go. It's great to be here. It's been 11 months since I last had opportunity to preach. Although we were here in February, my wife and I shared at the Valentine's Day gathering. That was fun. Seems like whenever we come here, there's food. Is that on purpose? It's not long ago that meals were almost exclusively, and in some homes they still are, but for most of us, meals are not at the table anymore. When I was growing up, I don't recall any time unless we were outside at a picnic or something, or a family gathering where the kids got bumped off the table and we just had to find another place, like the old rickety card table kind of a thing. But I don't recall any time where we had eaten in front of the TV or stuff like that. But it seems like it's more and more that way. And I found with even myself over the years, I tend to eat more in front of the TV, or I have a screen in front of me, a phone or an iPad or something. And the meaning of being at the table together has kind of faded away. One thing I noticed is that when we go to people's homes or potlucks, fellowship dinner, that we sit around a table. Except for some people, they just kind of gather their food and they go and they hoover it and they disappear somewhere. But we gather around a table. But when we go to people's homes, it's a family thing. You sit down and you're there, you're together, and you discuss and you go through different things of the day or the week, and it's a part of belonging. And one time we were at some people's house, and there was this knock on the door. And we had already sitting down and we started to eat, and this person came to the door. And it wasn't, we're busy, or excuse me, but come on in and join us. We've got an extra chair. And they brought an extra chair and they sat them down and gave them a plate. And they just became a part of the family, a part of the gathering. Being at a table, to sit down and to eat with someone is really a special thing, and it's deeply rooted in a lot of different cultures. Every culture that we have been a part of, Canadian, American, if you want to call American culture, Filipino, Korean, Hispanic, East Indian, First Nations, Cameroonian when we were there, they all had the sharing of the meal together. When we were in Cameroon as missionaries, we would be invited to someone's home, and the meal was a really big deal. And after church, we would be taken and we would be given a special room and a special table, and they would sit us down, and the head of the home would sit down and talk with us, and then the women would go out and they'd catch the chicken. And they would catch the chicken. And you have to understand that being served chicken in Cameroon at the time was a very, very special thing, because a chicken will lay eggs. It's a producer. And so to be served a producer was a very big deal in that culture. It was an honor. But they would sit us down and they would serve us, and they would sit and meet with us and talk with us. And you weren't in a hurry. You weren't in a hurry. We waited and talked. They would ask us questions about Canada. We'd ask them questions about their family and what was going on. And as a pastor, often they would ask questions about the Bible, and there would just be these good discussions that would happen. And so when we read in the scripture that I've chosen this morning is kind of varied a little bit in different scriptures, but it's based in Luke. And in Luke chapter 22, we see that Jesus is sitting down with his disciples, and it's what we commonly call the Last Supper. But it's not something that's new. This has been a tradition in the Jewish culture and in families for centuries. I invite you to turn back to Genesis chapter 18. I'm going to read from Genesis chapter 18, verses 3 through 9. And here we see that Abraham is having some visitors coming. And he said, "My Lord," to them, if I have found favor in your sight, please do not go past your servant. Let a little water be brought, that you may wash your feet and rest yourselves under a tree. And I will bring bread so that you may strengthen yourselves. This is why you pass by your servant on the way, and later you can continue on. And yes, he said, do as you have asked. And so Abraham hurried from the tent and said to Sarah, "Quick, knead 3 measures of fine flour, the best, and make bread." And meanwhile, Abraham ran to the herd and he got a tender, choice calf. And he gave it to the young man who hurried to prepare it. And Abraham took curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and sat down before the men, and he served them as they were under the tree. You can picture that. Now, we've got some cattle ranchers. How long does it take for you to catch, kill, butcher, and prepare a calf for a meal? You're not hanging it for 2 weeks. It takes a little bit. And we've got some bakers. And how long does it take you to knead and to bake bread? You're not a baker. This is a long process. And they're sitting down and they're resting and everything is being prepared. And as they're taking this time of preparation, they're talking and they're visiting and they're getting to know one another. Questions were asked, and it's a time of relaxation. Sit under the shade of the tree. Let me wash your feet. Let me get something for you in the meantime. The idea of coming to the table was not just an eat and a run, but it was being welcomed and being honored as part of the family. And even more in cultural time, in biblical times and in some cultures today, it's a time of not just sharing, but it's a place of peace. It's a place of forgiveness. It's a place of restoration, not just physical but relational. It's a place of making agreements or covenants with each other. The meal together was a sign that all is well. There's no animosity between those who eat together. Later on in the life of Jacob, we see the grandson of Abraham, when he had tricked and manipulated by his father-in-law, and then he in turn snuck away with his family, and we read that Jacob took and he left, and Laban came after him. His father-in-law chased after him, and several days later caught up with him. And then we come to Genesis chapter 31, and we read in verses 25 through 39. Let me just read these verses for you. And when Laban overtook Jacob, Jacob had pitched a tent in the hill country, and Laban and his brothers had also pitched their tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You have deceived me. You have taken my daughters away like prisoners of war. Why did you secretly flee from me, deceive me, and not tell me? I would have sent you away with joy and singing and tambourines and lyres." Musical instrument, not people who are telling fibs. "But you didn't even let me kiss my grandchildren and my daughters. You have acted foolishly. I could do you harm. But last night, the God of our fathers said to me, 'Watch yourself. Don't say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.'" And then we skip down to verses 41 and 42. Jacob is talking. For 20 years I have worked in your household, 14 for your 2 daughters, and 6 for your flocks. And you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, the fear of Isaac, had not told me, certainly now you would have sent me off empty-handed. But God has seen my affliction and my hard work and issued his verdict last night. And then 43 and 44, as we see that there's this tension. Laban, you took away my children, my grandchildren. You left. And what's the guy's name here? Jacob. You cheated me. You made me work for you for 20 years. You did and all of this. And can you sense the tension? Can you sense the family dynamics? It's not a happy camping situation here. 43. And Laban answered Jacob, the daughters are my daughters, my sons, and flocks are my flocks, and everything you see is mine. But what can I do today for these daughters of mine and for the children they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I. Let it be a witness between the two of us. And then 53 on. The God of Abraham and the gods of Nahor, the gods of the father, will judge between us. Jacob swore by the fear of the father, his father Isaac, and Jacob offered a sacrifice on the mountain and invited his relatives to eat a meal. And so they ate a meal and spent the night on the mountain. Laban got up early in the morning, kissed his grandchildren and daughters, and blessed them. And Laban left and returned home. It may seem a little foreign to us, but the pattern is set. When you sit and you eat together, there is peace. The meal is a sign that all is well, that there is forgiveness and restoration. Eating a meal together in this culture is the sign of peace. It's a sign of peace between people. In the book, Sitting at the Feet of the Rabbi, the authors share an account which, even listening to the news this morning, just jumped the headlines on CBC this morning that a child was killed in a shooting thing between Israel and the Arabs, and a child died, and now there's all this tension that is going on, and you can see the tension that is between these Middle Eastern peoples. But here, this man, he had an accident, and they share this story. A few years ago, a Messianic Jew by the name of Allan was driving through an Arab village in Israel, and suddenly a figure darted out from the side of the road. Allan slammed on his brakes, but too late. He struck and killed a 13-year-old Palestinian boy. Allan couldn't understand why the teenager had ignored the blaring horn and the screeching brakes, and later he learned the reason. The boy was deaf. Haunted by the tragedy, Allan was determined to make amends by seeking the family's forgiveness. Other Jews who heard his plan thought he was crazy. An Israeli policeman had warned him, saying, "Man, this is dangerous. You cannot go. You can't be serious. There's problems there. You are an Israeli Jew, and if these people want to and they meet you, there will be trouble." The policeman was merely echoing what Allan already knew. According to Arab tradition, the family could kill Allan as vengeance for the death of their son. But Allan persisted, insisting an Arab pastor who he had arranged to go with him, that they would sit down at a meal of reconciliation, in their words, a sulha. And here's how Allan describes what happened when he sat down with the boy's family for the ceremonial meal. Cups of coffee remained on the table untouched. According to tradition, the father would be the first to taste from the cup as a sign that he has accepted the reconciliation gesture and indeed agreed to forgive. The tension in his face had cast a shadow on the proceedings until, at one point, he suddenly began to smile. The lines of grief softened, and he looked at the man, Allan, squarely, and his smile broadened as he moved towards him, opening his arms in a gesture of embrace. As they met and embraced, he kissed the man ceremonially 3 times on the cheeks, and everyone began to shake hands with one another as the father sipped his coffee. The whole atmosphere transformed. The tension was at an end. And then something even more surprising happened. A spokesman for the family turned to Allan, and a remarkable invitation was given. Know, O my brother, that you are in a place of peace, and you are now in the place of his son who has died. You have a family and a home somewhere else, but know that here is your second home. The meal, the table, is an important part of many cultures, and it's an important part of our culture. I share this because we live in a culture today, in a time today, when being at the table has lost so much of its meaning. Even when we come to communion, we sit and we tend to tack it on at the end of a service. We go through some motions of coming forward and taking the elements and sitting down, and maybe we're looking at our phone or checking if we have any messages, or we're talking to the person next to us. We're not really focusing on what this time, this coming to the table, is really significant of. And I'd like to turn to a familiar passage for us as a man, the Lord, invited his people to enter into a covenant and to sit and to eat with him. The Lord invited his followers into a time of covenant and meeting. And I invite you to turn in your scriptures to Exodus chapter 24. Moses has met with God and is given the tablets of the law. And the people declared that they would do everything that the Lord has said, that they will obey. A covenant, an agreement is made between them. And then in chapter 24, verses 8 through 11, Moses took the blood, sprinkled it on the people and said, "This is the blood of the covenant the Lord has made with you concerning all these words." And Moses went up with Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and the 70 elders, and they saw the God of Israel. And beneath his feet was something like pavement made of sapphire stone, as clear as the sky itself. God did not harm the Israelite nobles. They saw him, and they ate and they drank. Can you see the picture? An agreement, a covenant is made. Blood is sprinkled. And now they are invited to sit and eat with God. Whoa. Jesus had for some time been making it more clear that he was the Messiah. That not only this, but he was the Son of God, and that he and the Father are one, and he's leading his followers. And they now enter into a new covenant, a new agreement. And this is where we come to the passage that you have on the screen in front of you. It's a familiar passage again. And the events we go through once a month or so as we come into communion together. But I like this passage in Luke because it starts off, let me read it for you and see if you can catch. When the hour came and he reclined at the table with his apostles, and he said to them, I have fervently desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. For I tell you, I will not eat again until it is fulfilled in the kingdom of God. And he took a cup, and after giving thanks, said, take this and share it among yourselves. For I tell you now that I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until the kingdom comes. And he took bread and broke it, and he gave it to them. This is my body, which is given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. And afterwards he also took the cup, and he said, this cup is the new covenant established in my blood. This is shed for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Did you catch Jesus' feelings at this time? I'm going to read it again. I have fervently desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. He's had Passover meals with them before. He's had many meals with them. They have sat down many times at a table and eaten together. But this time, Jesus says, I fervently desire. The words literally in the Greek are, I deeply desire. With deep desire, I have deeply desired to eat this meal with you. It's a loaded statement, and it's a deep word. It's a powerful word. The English version that I read is fervent. I have fervently desired. In the original, it's I have deeply desired. And I've deeply desired, and he repeats it twice. When you have this powerful word that's expressed once, you kind of take notice. But when it's repeated, it's like, hey guys, pay attention. This is very serious. And sometimes we see that in the old version, what's the old version of the Bible? King James? We'll see this statement, verily, verily. That means pay attention, pay attention. Like, hey, come on, get your eyes off your phone. Listen to me. I have deeply desired, fervently desired, this intensity. Why? Because Jesus is coming at this Passover meal, and he's reenacting not just the tradition of the Passover, but this tradition of the family meal. This tradition of coming together in peace and in covenant. And he says, I'm establishing even a new covenant in my blood. And the Jewish mind, the disciples that are sitting there, they would think not over of the Paschal lamb, the Passover lamb, but back even to when Moses was meeting with God. And there was the shedding of blood. And they went and they met with God in a new covenant, the law. And Jesus is meeting now with his disciples. This deep desire to meet with them and us. And wanting us to know the depth of the conviction that he has. And this coming, that picture of Allan and going into that Arab home. And the father of the son who had died is waiting there. And there's this tension, and then there's the smile. And the man gets up, and he embraces Allan. And they eat together. And he says, you are now my child. Can you picture that with God? With Jesus? And that's the basis of our communion time. We come not hurried and rushed and looking at our phone and kind of going, there's this fellowship meal that's later and our stomachs are growling and we're wanting to leave quickly and to go. But it's a time for us to come and to meet with God, who looks at you. He says, I forgive you. And he looks at you and he says, you're my child. And he embraces you. We sit down in a place of peace and reconciliation. This isn't the last time that Jesus would meet with his disciples for a meal. He met with them again in the upper room after the resurrection. But even more significantly, we read at the end of the Gospel of John that Jesus was waiting on the shore as the disciples were out fishing. And he's preparing what for them? Shore lunch. Bread and fish. And as they come, and he invites them to join in a meal together. But this is a significant one for one of the disciples. And his name is Peter. And I can imagine Peter coming to that place where Jesus is sitting on the shore and the fire is crackling and the fish is sizzling and you can smell the bread and everything. And Peter now is disturbed in his soul. Why? Because he knows and Jesus knows that Peter had denied his Savior once, twice, 3 times. And he knows that he can't really sit down and have this meal with Jesus until something happens. Reconciliation, restoration, forgiveness. And I can imagine Peter falling on his knees, tears coming down his eyes. And he's just opening himself before the Lord and he's saying, I'm so sorry. Forgive me. These are not Jesus' words, these are Allan's words. Peter, I forgive you. You are now restored into relationship. And we have this renewed relationship. Go in my strength and feed the lambs. And that shore lunch on the Sea of Galilee was again enacting that place of forgiveness and renewal and restoration and covenant. But that's not the last time that Jesus is going to meet with his followers for a meal. There's one coming. And it's the great banquet. Can you imagine? We often think, it's a big banquet. We're going to go and there's going to be this banquet in the sky. And we read in Psalm 23 that he prepares a table before me in the presence of mine enemies and this. And we have this wonderful picture of sitting down at a table with Jesus and everybody's there and all gathered around. And it's a time of woohoo celebration. But it is much, 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 much more than that. It's a family meal. We're sitting down at a family meal with Jesus and with the Father. And what Moses and the elders experienced on that mountain when the new covenant was made, what the disciples experienced with Jesus that night when they had that Last Supper, what Peter experienced on the shore of the Sea of Galilee, that coming together with their Savior, that time of forgiveness, that time of restoration, that time when we can have that family meal together. That's what communion is. It's a reminder, yes, that Jesus died and gave his body for us. It's a reminder, yes, that Jesus shed his blood and we have the forgiveness of sins. But it is also a time of renewal and reconciliation and restoration and relationship. And we come not hurried. We take our time and we reflect and we rejoice. And Jesus then says this: this is my body broken for you. This is my blood shed for you as a sign and a symbol of a new covenant that I have with you. And this is my command for you. Love one another. And in that context, we see that communion is also a time when we need to look at those who are sitting at the table with us. Is there tension like there was between Laban and Jacob? Is there a need of seeking forgiveness like Peter and Jesus? Is there something that we need to clear the air about with someone that we come and sit at the table with? In the next few moments, as the song is being sung, it's an opportunity for you to pause and reflect. And if you feel the Spirit of God nudging, poking, maybe clobbing you over the head with a 2x4 and saying you need to, as you look around this room, and I do give you permission to look at your phone and maybe send a text to somebody that says, we need to talk. But take this time as the song is being sung, not to sing the song necessarily, but as God saying to you, you need to have this peace restored in your life. And maybe it's something between you and God the Father. Maybe it's something between you and Jesus. I've not been faithful. I've not been following. I've been like Peter. I've denied you, maybe not in words, but in action in my life. And you just need to quietly go before the Lord. So I invite the worship leaders to come up and to lead us in this song of preparation. And I encourage you to take this time.